Welcome to the Outlaw Radio Show. My name is Zach Adams, and I pastor a church located just outside of Athens, Georgia. The name of the church is Calvary 316. There's some great 316 verses, and we're also on Highway 316. And so that's our church. Our service is at 10:30. If you're local, come hang out with us one Sunday morning. If you're not local but looking for a church that teaches the Bible, not teaches from the Bible, but teaches the Bible, then you can join us online. Our YouTube channel is calvary316.live. You can learn all about the church by going to the church website, which is calvary316.com. I am joined, as always, by a cast of characters. We'll begin, though, with the maestro of this dysfunction, Mr. Creighton Vaughn.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Outlaw Radio Show.
Who is cleaned up today.
Yes, I have shaved my head. I've taken it all the way down. I had pretty long hair last week. I had pretty long hair up until about 4 hours ago.
So you just decided to ditch the curls.
Yeah, it was. I really like having curls. I have very nice curls, but it is a lot of work. And when your hair is that long, it gets everywhere. Just everywhere. It's a lot of work. And so I was just tired of it. So I decided, let's go back to my roots, literally.
I like this look. That's a good look. That's a good look. Not a lot of people can pull that off, but you've got it. And you trimmed with the beard. It. You're looking clean, fresh and clean. I appreciate
it. Yeah,
absolutely. Also joining us is we've got Dear Daddy, we've got Spice Daddy.
What's up, my little pepper poppers?
Yeah, how you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Doing well.
Yeah.
Vinny, you're going to be out of town for
unfortunately
another week or two, right?
I am not looking forward to it, but yeah.
Yep, hitting the road. Got to go pick up a bus, right?
Yep. The mobile cigar lounge.
The mobile lounge.
If anybody wants to follow on your adventures, how can they do that?
I'm pretty annoying on Facebook.
Yeah. You're also on X at Vinny Himes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So it's just your name, Vinny Himes.
It's pretty interesting to follow along on your misadventures.
As long as you have cell signal. You ran into quite a few places that you did not have cell signal.
Yeah, and we even had Starlink with us, but we found that we were overtaxing it with 4 adults trying to run laptops and cell phones, and so yeah, it's just it's a crapshoot. It is what it is. Some days I get to post things, and some days I go 3 or 4 days with no internet. So
I gotcha. Well, the order of operations is Creighton's going to give a little plug to Get Fed Today, and then we're going to roll into a segment that we've done, I think, once or twice. We've kind of repackaged it. We're calling it IFS, which is Intersecting Faith and Science with Pope C. We've got a cool graphic, the whole thing. But first, before we get to that, Creighton, why don't you give a quick plug to Get Fed Today?
Yes. So Outlaw Radio is brought to you by Get Fed Today, which is another one of our podcasts. It is on all of the major podcasting things. If you are using a podcast thing and you can't find it, please let me know.
Platforms.
And the way it works, platforms. Thank you. Yes. If you can't find it, please let me know and I will get it on your platform. The way it works is every week we upload 5 Bible studies from 5 different Bible teachers from across the United States. So if you are looking to get into studying the Bible for the first time and you don't know where to start, it's great. If you just need more from the Bible during your week than you get on a Sunday morning, you want to have a Bible study every day, it is perfect for you. We upload 5 Bible studies every week. We currently have 670 Bible studies uploaded. So if you have all of the time in the world and want to listen to all of them, you will know a great deal about the Bible.
I will also say that if you have a Bible teacher that you really like and but isn't being featured on Get Fed Today, that's not because we don't like them. It's because we probably never heard of them. And so you can drop us an email at popecreighton@gmail.com. Again, popecreighton@gmail.com, and let us know, and we'll check them out. And if they're good, we will post them. I have a good friend I had lunch with. She gave me a whole list of pastors that she really enjoys listening to, and I trust her. So we dropped a whole bunch of new people into the lineup recently, and so always looking for good tips. It can be a bit of a community thing, and so be sure to let us know. We've got an intro for IFS. Creighton, go ahead and roll it.
Pope Creighton's prayer, it rises high, where faith and science touch the sky. In the word and wonder truth is clear, God's design in every sphere. Oh, Pope Creighton dreams with heart sincere of a world where truth appears, faith and reason shine as one. In Pope Creighton's prayer, God's will be done.
All right, welcome to IFS. My name is Pope Creighton Vaughn, and today I'd like to talk about one of my favorite things in science. So the whole point of this is that I am a huge science nerd. I love science. I think it is one of the most interesting things that God has given us to study. And one of my favorite things about science is that it lets us learn and see things that He built into the world at creation that He knew that people wouldn't see for thousands of years.
That's very cool.
So one of the easiest ones to point at is the Helix Nebula. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's out in deep space. It looks like a giant eye looking back at us that God made at creation, and we weren't able to see until I think the 1960s or something when we first got that kind of telescope. But it was there the entire time. I love that God built in Easter eggs, knowing that at some point we would be able to appreciate it, and also knowing that it would be thousands of years before we would, but that when we saw it, we would appreciate it.
But like on the second day of creation, He's like, I'm going to put this, what is it, the Helix?
The Helix Nebula.
Explain what the Helix Nebula is.
So I'm not
Is that a
much
star?
I'm not much of an astronomer. This is just an example. This is not what we're talking about today.
Okay.
But it is it's a giant gas cloud that just happens to look like an eye because God thought it would be cool. Now,
God's like, it's going to take them a while until they can see it, but I'm going to go ahead and put that out there. Very cool.
Yeah,
All
just
right.
because He built things for us to enjoy. So this is one that I find really, really interesting. So we're going to talk about the periodic table. Can you guys think of the periodic table? You have a basic idea of what it looks like in your head?
Yep. Yes, I immediately see it from Breaking Bad's
Yes.
intro video.
Yes.
Okay.
I've actually been watching Breaking Bad recently.
Okay.
But so on the far right hand of the periodic table,
The Breaking Bad table.
are the non-metals. These are things like oxygen, carbon, your noble gases. Most of them are gaseous in nature or in their elemental state. They're non-metals. They're like 20% of the periodic table. There's one specifically in that group called chlorine. You guys have all heard of chlorine, I'm sure. Chlorine is a fascinating chemical because it is A, super reactive, and B, super toxic in its elemental form.
And we're cleaning our pools with this?
Yes, we're cleaning our pools with it because it's toxic. Because it is toxic to bacteria as much as it is to people. And so what's interesting about chlorine is the reason that it's toxic is that in its outermost electron shell, doesn't matter what that means specifically, but in its outermost electron shell, it has 7 electrons and it wants to have 8, which means that it is very willing to pull electrons from other atoms. And as a result, it is very reactive, and it has a tendency to pull electrons from things that the other atoms need, or whatever the atom is attached to needs.
So it's like where chlorine gas is very dangerous.
This is why chlorine gas is very dangerous. It is, in fact, chlorine gas was the first really effective chemical used in warfare. It's by a guy named Fritz Haber, and he was a German scientist in World War I. And he was the first one to really weaponize chlorine. And the way that it worked was he would just open up canisters on the battlefield when a favorable wind would come by. And because chlorine gas is heavier than air, it would stick to the ground and then fill the trenches on the enemy side. And because chlorine gas likes to pull electrons from other atoms, if you breathe in chlorine gas, it causes the lining of your lungs to basically dissolve, and you end up drowning in your own fluids.
Ugh.
It is a horrible, grisly way to die.
But it does this because it's craving an extra electron.
Yes.
All right.
It does this because it's craving an extra electron, and it craves it bad, so it will rip it off of other things to get that extra electron.
So it's aggressive that way.
Yes.
All right.
On the other side of the periodic table is a metal that in its elemental state, if you see it, it looks kind of like lead. It is very soft. You can actually cut all the way through a chunk of it with a butter knife.
AU?
No, way farther on the other side. AU is kind of in the middle, and AU is gold, for those of you who don't know. And it is kind of soft. You can dent gold with a fingernail, same thing with lead. This, you could cut through an inch thick piece of it with a butter knife without much difficulty. We'll get there.
Okay.
So it is very soft, and on the outside, if you see it, it usually has kind of a leaden tarnished look. And then when you cut into it, it is bright silvery white. The reason for that is because it is also very, very reactive, but for the opposite reason that chlorine is very reactive. It's really reactive because in its outer electron shell, it has a single electron, which it is very, very, it likes to give up. It is very ready to give up this electron to anything that comes by that needs an electron. So it is also very reactive. It is called sodium, and it is in its elemental state so reactive that you can look this up on YouTube. It's spectacular. You take a chunk of sodium and submerge it in water, it explodes. Like violently full, like an M80 in a lake explodes. It's wild. There are videos all over YouTube. It's well worth a watch if you have time. In fact, when people distill elemental sodium, to keep it around, they have to submerge it in oil because it reacts to the air and the water in the air so rapidly that they won't have any left if they just left it on a counter.
It's just wanting to get rid of that electron.
Oh, it throws electrons out like it's nobody's business. And so they submerge it, and even while it's submerged in oil, it will start reacting. So even in the oil, it gets that patina on the outside from the top layer reacting to even the water and the oxygen
It
that's
gets
in
that
the oil.
urge.
Now, what's fun about these two elements is that because chlorine is the gap with one electron, is a gap of one electron, and sodium has a single electron that it's ready to give up, they combine really easily. And when you combine them, do you guys know what you get?
Table salt.
Table salt. You take a massively toxic, poisonous gas and a violently explosive metal, and you combine them 1-to-1, NaCl, sodium chloride. You combine them and you get table salt. A ubiquitous, necessary for human life as we know it, compound, table salt. All table salt is explosive metal and poisonous gas, which I think is just so cool.
That is very cool.
And
yeah. Didn't know that.
The Easter egg is that for the first, 5,000 years of human life on Earth, we did not have the ability to see either sodium or chlorine in their elemental forms. Because they're so reactive, they're not found in nature, because anytime that they would form, they would just react with whatever's around them and no longer exist. So the only way that we had to experience them was through salt, which is everywhere.
We eat
and
it.
is ubiquitous. We eat it. We need it for everything. When we eat it, the chlorine is used to make hydrochloric acid in our stomach, and the sodium is used for all manner of things, from the way your muscles work to osmosis gradients in your cells, all kinds of things. Now here's the intersection. We ready?
We are ready.
Poisonous gas, explosive metal. Here's the intersection. Jesus tells us that we are the salt of the earth, right?
Yeah.
And that is something that at the time, as I said, was a constant. We didn't have the ability to see sodium or chlorine in their elemental states until the 17 or 1800s. Now, Jesus asks, he says, you are the salt of the earth. And then he asks, what is to be done with salt when it loses its flavor? Which I've always found as a really interesting question.
Because salt doesn't technically lose its flavor.
It is a chemical property of salt that it tastes salty.
But there is a way.
So how can it lose its flavor is if it stops being salt and is turned back into its chemical elements, which then makes it be reactive, explosive, and toxic. And Jesus says that it has to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. I find this really interesting because in another passage in Corinthians, Paul tells us that truth without love is as a clanging cymbal. And so I think as Christians, we are called to bring both love and truth to the world. And I think that either one of them by themselves are both ineffective and in a lot of ways dangerous. In the same way that sodium and chlorine by themselves do not do what salt does and are by themselves very dangerous.
I love it.
Yeah, so that's the ifs.
So I when I was teaching through the book of Genesis, one of my favorite commentators was C.H. McIntosh, who was an old guy. But in the creation account, that common refrain, and God said that it was good, right? Mm-hmm. so after each day, he would look over what he did, and he would say, and it was good. And he says that in the Hebrew, like a different way of translating it to the same end, it wasn't so much that God was looking at what he had done and giving a stamp of approval on the quality of the work. Like, I did a good job today. It's more of like, oh, they're going to love this.
Yes.
And so at the end of each day of creation, God's refrain wasn't like, oh, I did a really good job today. It's like, oh, they're going to love this. And who's they? Well, in the tense, it's us, it's creation. It's that God made all these things for us. And so from the Helix Nebulous to looking at the very cool thing, like how we get salt, we would have never known until like God made that one way.
And right, and he didn't necessarily have to.
And
he
it's
could have
discovery.
done it anyway.
It's discovery.
It's so cool.
I remember like watching like
stuff.
Planet Earth, and they would be like, which was a great, I think it was BBC documentary or whatever, but they would show like, some guy would be out in the woods for 60 days trying to film this one little bird doing a little dance to like try to, and like when they finally got the shot, it's like, this is the first time in human history that anyone has ever seen this in the wild. And it's like, yeah, and God did that 6,000 years, 7,000 years ago. It was like, they're going to love it.
They're going to love that. Yeah. Also, the video that he's talking about is the Birds of Paradise, and you should definitely look it up because it's wild and super cool. Well, I can see what you're talking about in my head.
Well, thank you for the ifs, man. That was great.
Cool.
Wonderful. Good job.
That was it.
So tonight on the Outlaw Radio Show, what we're going to be talking about is, so like we're at Calvary 316 on Sunday, we're working our way through the histories. So we've gone through 1 Samuel. We're in the middle of 2 Samuel. We're harmonizing not Corinthians, but that would be interesting harmony. 2 Samuel and 2 Corinthians. No, we're the Chronicles. Anyway, my point is that in chapter 6 of 2 Samuel, you have the Ark of the Covenant. Whole chapter is about the Ark of the Covenant, getting to Jerusalem, King David, etc. What I love about having Outlaw Radio is that studying that passage, like I spent a whole day going down a rabbit hole about the Ark of the Covenant. The biblical accounting of the Ark of the Covenant, what it was intended to do, where it shows up in the histories, when it disappears, where it is now, does it even matter? I kind of went deep, and so tonight I want to talk about the Ark of the Covenant. I want to talk about every passage in the Bible that deals with the Ark of the Covenant. I want to throw out some theories about where it potentially is, and then address at the end, like, does that even matter? Should we even care? What should we take away from it? Before we get to that, we're gonna roll in another segment, and we've got the next installment of our Dear Daddy series. So roll it, Craig.
Out on the Montana plains where the big sky meets the land, dear Daddy stands with the Bible in a calloused hand. His heart is full of faith and his stories never end. He shares the wisdom from the rains where wild rivers bend. He's roped the winds of doubt and tamed the storms of fear. With a prayer and a grin, he makes the truth appear. From the Bible's holy words to the lessons of the soil, he shares God's love with honesty and none can foil. Dear Daddy, oh dear Daddy, hear the cold cry. With your cowboy heart, you answer questions why. Faith and life, you guide us through the darkest night. Dear Daddy, shine your wisdom, lead us to the light.
So the whole idea of our Dear Daddy segment is that we're wanting you guys, the listener or the viewer, to drop questions that you have for Dear Daddy. They could be questions about really anything. Like, there's nothing off limits, from love life to work to cooking to guns and outdoorsy stuff to the Bible. You can ask any question. So if you'd like to submit a question that we can include on our Dear Daddy segment, please email us at popecreighton@gmail.com. Again, popecreighton@gmail.com, or find one of us on social media and submit your question. and we'll include it. This week, we've got our next Dear Daddy question from Spice Daddy, actually. So go with it, Spice.
So might have gotten carried away with the AI because we couldn't figure out a question. So I was like, I'm just going to grok it. So this question actually comes from Grok. So I'm going to get started here. Dear Daddy, is doubt just a part of faith, or does it mean you've already stepped outside of it?
Repeat the question. Let him think. Your phone turns off fast.
Oh, I did it that way. Is doubt just a part of faith, or does it mean you've already stepped outside of it?
I don't think you've stepped outside of it. I think the devil's found a chink in your armor and uses doubt as a tool to get inside of our head to make us falter in our faith. I've never doubted my faith, ever. But you've also heard my testimony. So when you experience, as a young child, when you experience Jesus and the Holy Spirit saving you from evil turmoil, there's no room for doubt, because it was such a blatant salvation from evil torment. And I don't ever want to experience that again. Like, I've never had a bad dream since the night that I accepted Jesus into my heart. Like, I've never had a bad dream.
Do you think there's a difference between doubt and unbelief?
Yeah.
In what way?
Yeah, because unbelief to me is just pure ignorance. Doubt is you've already been given the information. You've made a choice to recognize the possibility of a creator. I don't like when people say, I know that the devil uses doubt as a weapon against us.
So what would you say to somebody looking into the camera that is, they're a believer, they love Jesus, they're sincere in their faith, but maybe they're struggling with some area of doubt? What kind of an exhortation, encouragement would you give that person? That's how we'll close out this.
If you're struggling with your faith, you have not put on the full armor of God, so you need to get back in the Word every single day. You need to wake up and start every single day in prayer, followed up with Bible study. I recommend doing it with a group of friends, or find a group of friends that you can do a Bible study with every single day, and start your day in the Word and in prayer, and there's no room for doubt, because you've put on the full armor of God, and the devil there's no holes, there's no gaps, there's no room for doubt when you commit each day to that.
I'll add, if I could. Yeah. There's a character in the Gospels that we call Doubting Thomas. And, he wasn't there with his bros when Jesus showed up, his first appearance, post-crucifixion, his resurrection. Thomas came in after the fact, and all of his friends are like, we just saw Jesus. And he's like, not unless I can put my hands, into the wounds. He wanted his own personal experience. And then 8 days later, Jesus shows up and appears to Thomas. And, and what I love is, does he rebuke Thomas for his doubt? No. Does Jesus criticize him or make fun of him? No. Like, Jesus just meets him where he was at. It's like, all right, here you go. If you needed this, here it is. And so what I find encouraging is that everything Vinny's saying is absolutely true. But if you're struggling with doubt, know that Jesus still loves you. He still has your back. Doubt is a normal part of life and our faith. Like, there are the valleys of doubt that we can often roll in, not always necessarily to our the core underpinnings of our faith, but doubting, God, are you going to come through in this particular circumstance? Jesus is never afraid of doubt. And like Vinny's saying, if you go to his word, he'll meet your doubt with answers, and he'll strengthen your doubt with resolve. And so appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, one step further, I think this would be a good topic to expand this a little bit more. I think there's a difference between doubting God and doubting what God has for you in your life.
That's interesting, yeah.
because, like, there's lots of times that I definitely had it in my life.
Well, and that's
got degrees in archaeology, not doing archaeology.
Yeah.
Went through, traveled a bunch of places where I thought I was going to be, not there anymore.
I went through that with my last job. I did not want to be there for 5 years. I prayed every day that God would put me where he needed me, and guess where he put me? Where I didn't want to be.
Right. But in all those times, I think it's less a doubt of God, and this question goes deeper. Is doubt of God and doubt of God's plan for your life. I guess.
I think we could take a whole episode on that.
And I'm really excited about tonight's episode, so I don't want to take up the whole time episode of this, but I think that's a good distinction of that.
We'll put that down into the show production schedule, and I think that would be a great topic to expound upon in a later show, no doubt about it. So let me get to the Ark. So what is the Ark of the Covenant? First, the Ark was a box, hence the term Ark. And it was a box that God instructed the children of Israel to build so that it would contain the tablets of stone, which God had issued the law and had made a covenant with Israel. Hence, it's an ark that contains the tablets of the covenant that God had made with the children of Israel. It's also the place where the presence of God would dwell on earth. It was modeled likely after the throne room, and specifically the throne of heaven. I want to read the introduction to the Ark of the Covenant in Exodus chapter 25, beginning with verse 10. God speaking through Moses, and they shall make an ark of acacia wood. 2.5 cubits shall be its length, 1.5 cubits its width, and 1.5 cubits its height. We're not 100% positive what a cubit is, but approximately you're looking at a box like a chest that was 3.75 feet long, 2.25 feet wide, and 2.25 feet high. So it's not a large container. Continuing, and you shall overlay it with pure gold, so it's to be built out of acacia wood, overlaid with pure gold, inside and out you shall overlay it. So the outside of the box is laid with gold, the inside of the box is laid with gold, and shall make it a molding of gold all around. So you wouldn't see any of the wood, you'd only see gold. And you shall cast 4 rings of gold for it. Put them in its 4 corners. 2 rings shall be on one side, 2 rings on the other. So they're out-facing rings. And you shall make poles of acacia wood, overlay them with gold, and you shall put the poles into the rings on the sides of the ark, that the ark might be carried by them. The poles shall be in the rings of the ark. They shall not be taken from it. And you shall put into the ark the testimony which I will give. Practically, God's in the process of giving Moses the law. Exodus 34, Deuteronomy 10 indicates that the tablets that were actually put into the ark were the second version, because if you recall the story, Moses comes down, finds the children of Israel worshiping a golden calf, and he throws down the tablets of stone. So the second tablets are the ones that were put into the ark. We also know from Exodus 16, 33 through 34, that they were to put a golden jar of the manna, this miraculous bread that God would provide. So that there was also a jar of manna, a gold jar of manna in the ark. And Numbers 17, verse 10 tells us that Aaron, there's a whole showdown. His priesthood was being challenged by others. God validated the Aaronic priesthood by having his staff bud, kind of a miraculous thing that took place. Obviously, the full staff wouldn't have been placed into the box because the box was pretty small, but obviously a section of the rod was put in there as well. And we know that those 3 things were in the ark because that's confirmed for us in the New Testament, Hebrews chapter 9, verse 4. Continuing, Exodus 25, you shall make a mercy seat of pure gold. 2.5 cubits shall be its length, 1.5 cubits its width. And you shall make 2 cherubim of gold, Of hammered work you shall make them at the two ends of the mercy seat. Make one cherub at one end, the other cherub at the other end, and you shall make the cherub at the two ends of it in one piece with the mercy seat. And the cherubs shall stretch out their wings above, covering the mercy seat with their wings, and they shall face one another. The faces of the cherubim shall be towards the mercy seat. So there was to be a covering to the box called the mercy seat. It was a lid, but it would double as a seat. And on each end of this golden covering would be these angelic creatures on each side, cherubim, with their wings hanging out towards the middle. So they're facing each other, facing the inside. We say that this is patterned after heaven because the cherub are continually around the throne of God, worshiping God day and night. Continuing, you shall put the mercy seat on top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony that I will give you, and there I will meet you, and I will speak with you from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherub, which are on the ark of the testimony, about everything which I give you in commandment to the children of Israel. And so this was to be an ark, a box holding the covenant, the tablets of stone. But it was also the place where the presence of God on earth would dwell, which is very, very significant. The record of the actual construction of the ark, Baziel's construction, is found in Exodus 37 verses 1 through 9. Again, Moses providing the blueprint, Baziel actually doing the work. The ark, interesting, of all of the tabernacle artifacts, had multiple functions. Like, it was one of the artifacts that didn't just reside within the tabernacle, at least in its early inceptions. And now the ark was located in the tabernacle, and specifically amongst the tabernacle structure into the innermost sanctuary, an area that was known as the Holy of Holies. In Exodus 26, verses 33 through 34, you can find this again in Exodus 30. The Lord says, and you shall hang the veil from the clasps. You shall bring the ark of the testimony in there, behind the veil. The veil should be a divider for you between the holy place and the most holy. You shall put the mercy seat upon the ark of testimony and the Holy of Holies. Exodus 40 provides for us the creation of the tabernacle. You had priestly functions outside of the tabernacle, in the outer court of the tabernacle, in the first sanctuary of the tabernacle, or the first area. But within the tabernacle, there was a partition, a veil, that separated like the showbread and incense and other things that priests would be going in and out day in and day out. Altar of incense was there. The innermost sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, the only artifact that would be there would be the Ark of the Covenant, and no priests were allowed into that inner sanctuary, with the exception of the high priest. And the high priest could only go into the innermost sanctuary because this is where the presence of God was. There was a veil. The presence of God was separated from all of humanity. When the tabernacle gets dedicated, the glory of God comes and fills the Holy of Holies and resides on top. Like if they pulled the veil back, there would be the glowing aura of God present within the Holy of Holies. Once a year, the high priest was commanded to go into the Holy of Holies to take the blood of the offering to make atonement for the children of Israel. He would scatter the blood on the ark, and that was to make atonement. The protocols for all of that, the Day of Atonement, how it relates to the ark, you can find all of that in Leviticus chapter 16. God was very specific about the ark, its construction, but also how it was to be transported. It should be noted that there were rings, poles that weren't supposed to ever be moved. That becomes interesting later in the story, because the ark was to be portable. Now, the majority of the time, no one would see the Ark of the Covenant. It was hidden from all of the people, except for the one day that the high priest goes in. But during the Exodus, The ark was transported, not just because the whole tabernacle was transported, but it would also be transported for unique reasons. Numbers chapter 4, verses 4 through 15, explains that the ark was to be transported by the Levites, but within the Levites, the Kohathites, a particular family of Kohath, were given the instructions and protocols and mandates that it was the only family that was allowed of the Levitical order to transport the ark at all. Verse 15, we actually read that when Aaron and his sons had finished covering the sanctuary, the furnishings of the sanctuary, when the camp was set to go, that the sons of Kohath shall come to carry, but they shall not touch any holy thing lest they die. They are the things in the tabernacle of meeting which the sons of Kohath are to carry. And so no human being, only the sons of Kohath were to carry the ark, and no one was allowed to touch the ark. Why? Because you're sinful. And no sinful man was to come in contact with the presence of God. And this box not just represented the covenant that God had with man and the law, but also was this physical place in which God would dwell within the camp of his people. And so it was a no-no to touch the ark, and that was articulated at the very beginning. God was clear about it all. Let me give you kind of an example of kind of the ark in practice during the Exodus. Numbers chapter 7, we read that it came to pass when Moses had finished setting up the tabernacle, that he anointed it and consecrated it, all of its furnishings, the altar, its utensils. So he anointed them, consecrated them. Then the leaders of Israel, the heads of the fathers of the houses, those who were tribes, were numbered. They made an offering. They brought their offering to the Lord, 6 covered carts, 12 oxen, a cart for every 2 of the leaders, and for each one an ox. And they presented them before the tabernacle. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, accept these from them, that they may be used in doing the work of the tabernacle of meeting. You shall give them to the Levites, to every man according to his service. So you got to understand, all this gets built. Moses has to act as a pseudo-initial high priest to establish a priestly order, which is why Moses is a bit of a picture, a type of Jesus in that regard. But what's interesting is at the end of that chapter, number 7, it closes by telling us that Moses went into the tabernacle of meeting to speak with God. He heard the voice of one speaking to him from above the mercy seat that was on the Ark of Testimony between the 2 cherub. Thus he spoke with him. And then, again, a lot of protocols are given. But it's interesting, Moses wants to go speak with God. He's no longer going back up onto Mount Sinai. Where's he going? Moses is walking his way into the tabernacle. He's pulling back the veil, and he's talking to God, who's sitting upon the Ark of the Covenant, and God is speaking to him from the Ark of the Covenant. Just an amazing passage. Numbers 14, when the children of Israel refused to go into the land of promise. So as they're making their way in the Exodus, the ark would go first, and they would follow the ark. But in their rebellion, when they refused to go into the land, they decide that they're going to go up onto the mountaintop. This is Numbers 14. But we read that nevertheless, neither the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord nor Moses departed from the camp. So the children of Israel tried to move forward without the ark, and the Amalekites and the Canaanites who dwelt in the mountain came down and attacked them and drove them away. And so you see that the ark plays this pivotal role. It's the presence of God. If it goes, you follow. If it doesn't go anywhere, you stay. That's about all we get of the Ark of the Covenant within the Pentateuch. Again, not mentioned in Genesis. All the protocols established, Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. You get to Joshua, and then you get the Ark. 2 very interesting stories. So in chapter 3 and 4 of the book of Joshua, the children of Israel are going to cross the Jordan River, but the Jordan has overflowed its banks. It's in a very torrent stage, flood stage. And so Joshua needs to know what to do here. And so God tells him to have the sons of Kohath take the Ark of the Covenant, to carry it as it should be carried, to go up ahead, and to walk into the Jordan River. And the moment that they did, the Jordan River was dammed up. It just stopped flowing from that point. It wasn't a division like the Red Sea. It just stopped. the water stopped so that the nation of Israel could cross. And then when the Kohathites finished crossing the Jordan, boom, the waters are released and flood stage relents again. So the ark, the presence of God leading his people into their land. First major fortified city is Jericho. What's Israel to do? The commander of the Lord's army, Jesus, comes to Joshua and gives him kind of a very weird battle plan. I want you to send the ark out, and following the ark, I want there to be a bunch of musicians. And then I want the rest of the camp to follow, and you're going to walk around the walls of Jericho. You'll go back to camp. We're going to do that for 7 days. The walls are going to come down. And that's what happened. Like, just, again, the ark of God being led by the Israelites into battle, but God giving the instruction to do so. That's really the only mention that we have of the ark being used in any of those fashions. Again, they've made it back to the land of promise, so the Ark of the Covenant doesn't need to go forward to lead anyone. They now have the faith in God to take on the battles, so they don't need the ark being led into battle. They finally kind of divide the land out. All the tribes are given their portion. And then in Joshua 18, verse 1, we're told that the tabernacle gets built, gets erected in a place called Shiloh, an ancient city called Shiloh, where we assume that the Ark of the Covenant gets placed into the Holy of Holies, and it remains there for likely 400 years. Spice Daddy, they've done some interesting digs in the area of Shiloh, and they've uncovered that indeed such a foundation existed for this type of a thing. They found like tons of animal bones. Like, you've seen that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you for that contribution.
Well, I don't want to give away all my secrets, but that may or may not be a part of the next segment of Spice Daddy Digs.
Okay, so we gotta hold tight.
Yeah.
So we know that the Ark of Covenant, blueprints given, built Sinai, wanders the wilderness with Israel for 40 years, comes into the land under the authority of Joshua, ends up being placed into the tabernacle there in Shiloh, where it will remain for roughly 400 years. That period of history, of Jewish history, is known as the Book of Judges. There's only one mention of the Ark of the Covenant. It's in the later chapters, chapter 20. But that's actually an interesting story where they come to get God's advice, counsel of what to do with the tribe of Benjamin. But that chapter actually chronologically probably fits towards the very beginning of that particular period, following right on the footsteps of the death of Joshua. And so, again, there's this tabernacle protocol. You've got the Holy of Holies. You've got priests. But again, this 400-year period is described as being a time where everyone did what was right in their own eyes, and the worship of God was really put on a back burner. So much so that you get to 1 Samuel, and you're introduced to this man, Manoah. And Manoah, it's like he's doing kind of a really abnormal thing. Every year, he and his family are coming to the tabernacle to make sacrifices. And his wife is barren. She's crying out to the Lord. Eli's the high priest at the time. And thus you get the story of God's calling of the conception of Samuel, God's calling of Samuel, and then Samuel working in the tabernacle as a priest. We're not given any specific reference of interactions with the Ark of the Covenant, mainly because Samuel wouldn't have had any, because he's not the high priest. That would have been Eli's job. Samuel does have a conversation with God where God whispers his name. Very cool thing, first couple chapters of Samuel. But again, just not much information. In 1 Samuel chapter 4, the children of Israel get this bright idea. They're getting their butts kicked by the Philistines. They're like, hey, remember how they would take the ark into battle? Let's do that. And that's the first time in 400 years we have mention of the ark. And they go to Shiloh. They're going to take the ark into battle. They lose. God did not mandate it. They didn't request God's counsel. They lose, and the Philistines capture the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant. It gets captured by the Philistines and taken into Philistine territory. Subsequently, it's believed that the tabernacle is probably destroyed by the Philistines because that area gets kind of swallowed up by the Philistine incursion. A study of where the tabernacle ends up is interesting on its own, but we'll leave that for another segment. So the ark gets captured by the Philistines. They put it in the temple of Dagon. They come in and Dagon's fallen over like he's worshiping the ark. They put Dagon back up. They come in the next day. Dagon's now down. Hands are broken off. Heads broken off. And they're like, okay, that's weird. At the same time, everyone in this town begins to get serious hemorrhoids. People are dying from them. I mean, God's not where he is supposed to be, and he's going to be a pain in the butt about it. So the Philistines start hacky-sacking the ark around hey, this is terrible here. Let's send it to another town. And it just goes around, and it's just wreaking havoc. So finally, the Philistines decide, okay, we need to get rid of this thing. So they put it on a cart, and they kind of smack the donkeys, and they're like, hopefully the donkeys take it wherever it needs to go. We just need to make sure that it doesn't stay here. So in 1 Samuel chapter 6, verses 13 through 19, we read that the ark is sent from the areas of the Philistines to a town called Beth Shemesh, which was a border village that was kind of between the Philistine areas and Israel. So it was like the first town that the cart could get to. There's an interesting story. The residents of Beth Shemesh see that it's the ark. None of these people have ever seen this thing before. They put it up on a rock. They take the cart apart. They kill the oxen. They make burnt offerings there to the Lord. And then they decide that they want to look into the ark. They want to look inside the ark. So they decide that they're going to take the lid off and peer inside. And God is so upset about everything that's taking on. Like you're not supposed to touch this. You're not supposed to take the lid off. That chapter closes with 70,000 men being wiped out. Like it's a complete slaughter. So verse 20 and 21 of 1 Samuel 6, the ark is sent from Beth Shemesh. They want nothing to do with it, to a place called Kirjath Jearim. 1 Samuel 7, verse 1 opens, and the men of Kirjath Jearim came and took the ark of the Lord. They brought it into the house of Abinadab on the hill. It was a wooded area, and consecrated Eleazar, his son, to keep the ark of the Lord. And so it was that the ark remained in Kirjath Jearim a long time. It was there 20 years, and the house of Israel lamented after the Lord. It will stay in Kirjath Jearim, in that garage of Abinadab, likely about 70 years. Now, keep in mind a couple of things about that. It is not with the tabernacle, which is bizarre. It's not in the center of Israeli identity because it's being put in the garage of a dude who charges his son to take care of it. Is the high priest going behind the veil each year on the Day of Atonement to offer the blood of the offering to make atonement for sin? Is that happening? No. Like it is, like the tabernacle is pointless because it needs the presence of God, the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant on its own does what? Regarding atonement, because it's separated from the sacrificial system. So for 70 years, I mean, like you want to ask a Jewish scholar, I would ask it, like any rabbi or anybody that might be watching this, pass it along, like, how was atonement being made during these 70 years? Because the ark and the tabernacle are completely separated from one another. Now, fast forward to 2 Samuel chapter 6. So like, we go through a whole lot of history, go through the whole reign of Saul. Nothing. There's one moment he brings up the idea of getting the ark to go into the battle, but that doesn't seem to happen. The ark stays in the house of Abinadab. We know that because 2 Samuel 6, David decides he wants to bring the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, this city that he's just captured from the Jebusites. David's heart is completely right in his desire. His first approach, not so good, because they decide they're going to bring the ark on a cart. It begins to wobble. Uzzah reaches out and touches it, and he gets struck dead, and David's freaked out. So they dump it in another garage for a couple months. David consults with the Levites, like, hey, we obviously didn't do this right. They come up with a secondary plan. We're going to carry it. It's going to be Kothites. And every 6 steps, we're going to make an offering. So there's this slaughter, sacrifices, and David's wearing an ephod, and they bring it in with singing, but there's reverence and holiness. And so in 2 Samuel 6, the chapter closes with the Ark of the Covenant making it to Jerusalem, and it's basically being held in a tent. Again, it's not a tabernacle. We're told in Chronicles that the tabernacle is in Gibeon at this time. So still, you've got the tabernacle and the priestly order going through their rituals at the tabernacle. The ark is in a different place. Now, fast forward to 1 Kings 8, 2 Chronicles 5. David wanted to build a permanent dwelling place for God. He wanted to bring the tabernacle, have the ark, have everything together, and build a temple. God said you couldn't do it. But Solomon ends up building a temple, and this is when the ark gets reunited with all the other artifacts related to the worship of God in the tabernacle. The temple is built after the pattern and the structure that God had given for the tabernacle. It's just not portable. It's a physical dwelling place. And so it's at this point that the Ark of the Covenant is back in the Holy of Holies. And we have like the Levitical order doing the things that they were always supposed to be doing, but haven't been doing for now like 100 years. All right. It should be noted that according to 1 Kings 8, verse 9, at this time, the Ark of the Covenant only contained the 2 tablets of stone of the commandments. No one has any idea where the golden jar of manna or Aaron's rod ended up. Like, that is a complete archaeological mystery. We have no clue, no idea. Have you ever heard about that?
I haven't, but it's making me question who was able to open up the lid to pull those out of the ark.
The question would be, did the folks in Kirjath Jearim, because they opened it, they were all struck dead, could they have removed some of the vessels that then weren't placed in? Again, we have no idea. All we know is that there were 3 artifacts placed into the ark. But when the ark gets to the temple, like when everything gets there, it's just the tablets of stone, which is, again, it's a mystery. No idea.
How did they know?
Ostensibly, somebody would have to open it to know what was in it. Yes?
Yeah, that's the question.
I have no idea, but that's what the authoritative word of God says in 1 Kings 8, verse 9. So
difficult to argue with.
If the Bible says that that's what was missing, I have no clue.
Somebody's sending that dog and those kids.
Yeah.
Was that a Scooby-Doo reference?
It was.
So once the ark gets put into the temple, we have no idea what happens next. We don't. Except for the fact that with the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonians in 587, 2 Kings 25, verses 13 through 17, presents for us a lengthy list of artifacts that are taken from what's now a completely demolished Jerusalem and destroyed temple, artifacts that go back to Babylon. You can imagine an artifact of that much gold and prestige, if it had been present, would have been taken amongst the artifacts back to Babylon, or would have at least been documented that that's what took place. It's not listed at all in 2 Kings 25, indicating that the Ark of the Covenant was not in the temple when the Babylonians sacked Jerusalem in 587 BC. So what happened? Well, in 2 Kings 18 and 19, and then a corresponding passage in Isaiah 36 and 37. King Hezekiah is on the throne. Israel's a divided kingdom. You get the 10 northern tribes known as Israel. You have Judah in the south with the capital Jerusalem. The Assyrian Empire is on the march. They decimate the north. Isaiah he has prophetic ministries taking place at this time. Hezekiah is the king of Judah, his capital being Jerusalem. Hezekiah begins preparing Jerusalem for what was going to be a lengthy siege by the Assyrians under the reign of Sennacherib in 701 BC. We know that Hezekiah was doing all these fortifications because we have what's known as Hezekiah's Tunnel, which was building a better water duct system from the Pool of Siloam and the Warren Shaft down south to the Pool of the Sprig of Gitton, down to the Pool of Siloam. So Hezekiah's Tunnel, you can walk it today, was one of these building projects. They fortified the walls. There is speculation theory that Hezekiah, that they hid the Ark of the Covenant and some of the artifacts underneath the Temple Mount, that they had built a structure underneath, believing that the Assyrians would be successful conquering Jerusalem, wanting to keep these precious artifacts out of the hands of the Assyrians.
Quick commentary on this.
Yes.
I don't think people realize how many tunnels and things like that are under Jerusalem.
We've talked about this.
I talked a little bit about this.
I mean, like for someone who has very little knowledge of that, like you're talking about, like there are people who live on top of tunnels where people are currently digging in Jerusalem.
Yes, yeah.
Like that's crazy.
So you got tunnels like,
and limestone was very easy to dig into. It was
right.
strong.
It was
easy to dig.
There are tunnels upon tunnels upon tunnels under Jerusalem, and so
the belief, and I'll build on this for a second, is that that Hezekiah, believing that the city was likely to fall to the Assyrians, that they, in addition to building Hezekiah's tunnel for water purposes, that they built some secret chambers under the Temple Mount by which they could hide the Ark of the Covenant, some of the golden menorahs, the precious artifacts of the temple. Now, what ends up happening is that there's repentance. The siege is happening, but the angel of the Lord intervenes one night and kills 185,000 Assyrians, and Jerusalem remains. Now, 2 Chronicles 35. So we fast forward now to 609 BC. So almost 100 years. King Josiah is on the throne, and he ends up leading, like they discover the Word of God, and they're reading the Word of God, and they realize how far they've fallen. Babylon's kind of on the march, like these things are happening, but Josiah leads a national revival there in Jerusalem by reinstating the Passover, of which the Day of Atonement had a part. Let me read you a section of scripture. Now, Josiah kept a Passover to the Lord in Jerusalem. They slaughtered the Passover lambs on the 14th day of the month. He set the priests in their duties and encouraged them for the service of the house of the Lord. Then he said to the Levites who taught all Israel who were holy to the Lord, "Put the holy ark in the house which Solomon the son of David, king of Israel, built. It shall no longer be a burden on your shoulders. Now serve the Lord your God and his people Israel. Prepare yourselves according to your father's houses, according to your divisions, following the written instructions of David, king of Israel, that were written instructions of Solomon his son." Now, there are two ways that scholars have read this passage. I think the plain reading of the text is that Josiah has to instruct the Levites, we're going to do Passover. We're going to do this right. So I need you to go get the ark, and I need you to go put it back where it's supposed to be, right? Because we're going to make atonement for sin. Meaning what? That the ark was not in the Holy of Holies, but was in a known location, likely in whatever secret chamber that had been built by Hezekiah. There are Talmudic traditions that say that 2 Chronicles 35:3, that Josiah is actually instructing them to like that the language can be put it there and then hide it again. Again, because we know when Babylon attacks, the ark's not there. So was it hidden and then brought out by Josiah for this purpose, but then hidden again because there is the threat of a Babylonian invasion. Similar type things. Very possibly, meaning that today, the Ark of the Covenant could be up under the Temple Mount in some type of a secret chamber. I should mention that at the same time when Babylon is sacking Jerusalem, that there is an apocryphal tradition. So 2 Maccabees chapter 2 verses 4 and 8 that suggests that the prophet Jeremiah took the ark from Jerusalem and hid it in a cave in Mount Nebo before Jerusalem's fall. The legend states that Jeremiah hid the cave, like sealed up the cave, that it was hidden, that the location would remain unknown until God restored Israel and brought back his people and they reinstituted worship or whatnot, which wouldn't have happened because we know that Herod's temple, Zerubbabel's rebuilt temple did not have the Ark of the Covenant. They didn't know where it was. Herod's temple did not have the Ark of the Covenant. It wasn't there. It disappears before the Babylonian invasion, but once the temple is destroyed, it's not there, nor is it among the artifacts, which is really, really interesting.
So one of the things that, because we've had this conversation before talking about the Ark of the Covenant and whatnot, it is crazy to me that they didn't have the Ark in the temple while Jesus was on the earth. Because they were doing the sacrifices.
Right.
They were doing all kinds of things. The fact that the Ark wasn't there when the veil was split.
There was nothing in the room.
It is mind-blowing to me. Because I always knew that it was, but I always assumed that it was taken during the Roman sack, or I don't know.
No.
There's
I don't
three
know exactly
prominent
how I messed
theories.
it up, but it's crazy to me.
There's three prominent theories.
Well, before you get to that,
I don't want to get to those.
Before you get to that, let me jump in.
One of those applies to what he's asking.
I know, and it might be the Ethiopian.
No.
Well, then let me do the Ethiopian one,
Okay.
and then we'll get to yours.
Okay.
So,
That is one of the prominent theories.
because
though.
this compounds like your complication here even more so. Like, I contend that the whole tabernacle Levitical system functioned. Nobody cared, but it functioned for roughly 400 years during the time of the judges, while it's never mentioned, but it functioned. And then it's gone. The Philistines, Abinadab, it's gone for 7 years till David brings it in. It doesn't get reunited. Temple offerings don't actually start happening till Solomon reunites it all. Okay. And then after the Babylonian, like, then they're doing all of this without the Ark of the Covenant anyway. But it could be worse than that. So I'm going to read this. The most prominent Christian tradition about the Ark's fate comes from Ethiopia. Recorded in what's known as the Book of the Glory of the Kings, which is Nebra Nagast. Did I say that right? Do you have any idea?
I don't know in Amharic.
So Kebra Nagast, which is translated the Book of the Glory of Kings, it's a 13th, 14th century text. But the tradition centers on the Queen of Sheba from the kingdom of Assam, who visited King Solomon in Jerusalem, which is described in 1 Kings 10, 2 Chronicles 9. But the tradition centers that the Queen of Sheba leaves her time with Solomon, goes back to Ethiopia, but she's pregnant. She's pregnant with Solomon's son, Menelik the First. Do you know if I said that? Menelik the First.
Just go with it.
I'll go with Menelik. Now, again, legend. So the Queen of Sheba comes back to Ethiopia with a legitimate heir, like Solomon's son. Menelik, as an adult, visits Jerusalem to meet with his father. Solomon gives him treasures upon sending him home. According to the legend, unbeknownst to Solomon, Menelik, or one of his companions, led by Azariah, son of the high priest, took the Ark of the Covenant from the temple, replacing it with a replica to avoid detection. The Ark was brought to Assam, where it was enshrined in a sanctuary, which is today referred to as the Church of St. Mary of Zion, which, and this is true, has been guarded by a single monk ever since, and it's inaccessible to outsiders. No one's allowed into the Church of St. Mary of Zion, and one monk who's ordained for this job It's his sole sworn oath to protect the Ark of the
and
Covenant.
doesn't leave that compound.
Now, the Nebra Nagast claims that God sanctioned the Ark's transfer to Ethiopia, declaring Ethiopia a new chosen land, superseding Israel due to latter unfaithfulness. The text portrays Ethiopia as a new Zion. This is kind of the central belief of the Ethiopian Orthodox Christian Church. The Ark is celebrated in festivals called Timkat. It's the whole basis on the Ethiopian Jews linked back to Solomon. Meaning, if that's true, they hadn't had the Ark. The Ark of the Covenant was in the temple for maybe 30 years, 20 years.
Which all this kind of tracks with the way David and Solomon's like many wives and proclivities.
But well, God was kind of like, don't do that.
Yeah, and they
if you
did
do,
it
I'm gonna
anyway,
leave.
and it kind of tracks with that
There,
with that history.
there are Knights Templar Crusade legends that go back to the 11th, 13th centuries that suggest the Knights Templar discovered the Ark under the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. That was kind of the basis of
Raiders.
Raiders of the Lost Ark, popularized medieval culture. There is some interesting potential validities to some of those theories.
Open up those archives.
The New Testament reference in Revelation 11:19, then the temple of God was opened in heaven, and the ark of his covenant was seen in his temple. And there were lightnings, noises, thunderings, an earthquake, and great hail. One of the other theories is that the Ark of the Covenant was protected because God took it to heaven. And you can say, well, God took it to heaven. How does he did that with Elijah?
And Enoch. I will take any opportunity to talk about
Yeah,
Enoch.
he has taken things from earth to heaven.
That's actually a theory that I grew up thinking was that the Ark of the Covenant was taken to heaven, and that it was in heaven and would never be seen on earth again.
That's probably from evangelical circles, maybe the most prominent. Although if you're a preterist and you believe all this happened in 70 AD, I'd like an explanation on how that fits in.
Hey, can we do an episode on preterism at some point? 'Cause
We
I don't
could.
understand how it works.
I've got that on the list. Now, I want to explain why this all matters. What does this mean? We're running out of time, but I want to get to your
you
theories.
didn't mention the theory that I have, or all those I've heard. I've looked into the conspiracy theories of those. I'm a pretty big fan of the Ethiopian one. As much as I would like to see Indiana Jones be right on the Vatican stuff.
Well, it's in the Smithsonian.
Yeah. But
it belongs to the museum.
there's a controversial figure in biblical archaeology. His name is Ron Wyatt. He's actually the one that got me interested in archaeology, and I've talked about this before in the past. He claims to have seen the Ark in a hidden cave or passage under Jerusalem. And it seems to fit, the way he describes it, it seems to fit the location or a possible location of where the cross would have been. And the way he describes it is there's a crack running down, and
That the blood of the
blood
cross
dripped
would have
on,
gone on the Ark of the Covenant.
and would have satisfied the covering of, and this kind of gets into what I think we're about to talk about. Does it really even matter anymore, because that kind of covers God's law and that's why people died, right? Because
So let me get this straight. This idea is that where Jesus was crucified,
right,
that there was a direct furrow such that his blood from the cross
flowed
That's
down
the
the
theory.
cross.
contacted
Yeah.
the
It's pretty outlandish.
It's outlandish.
That sounds wild.
But this another one that's pretty, but it's out there.
I've seen that.
It's out there, and it's pretty well.
So Joel
within
Rosenberg writes a bunch of fiction, and one of his fictional books, The Copper Scroll, which was in a series, he postulates in the book that the predicate, that what will give the Jewish people the predicate to rebuild what will be the third temple will be the discovery of the temple treasure under the Temple Mount. Because if they were to discover the Ark of the Covenant, the golden menorahs, a whole bunch of this stuff under the Temple Mount. Archaeologically, it'd be the greatest discovery of all time, and it would give immediate, the Jews' immediate claim, way predating Muhammad, to the Temple Mount being a holy site, but also the justified place of worship. It's interesting that Ezekiel, when he goes to measure the third temple prophetically, is told to leave out the outer courts that they've been given to the Gentiles, and that there is a pretty solid presentation that you could build a Jewish temple on the original footing of Solomon's temple, not necessarily Herod's, but Solomon's, and still have the Dome of the Rock present. It would just be in the outer courtyard, which is why God told Ezekiel not to measure the outer courtyard.
Because it's been given to the Gentiles. It's the Dome of the Rock.
So why should we care about temple treasure or the Ark of the Covenant? Well, I think from a prophetic standpoint, we do know with end times eschatology that there will be a temple. We know that there will be a temple at least at the 3.5-year mark of the 7-year tribulational period. We know that because the Antichrist commits what Daniel refers to as the abomination of desolation when he enters the temple and declares himself to be God. So presumably he enters, sits on the goes into the Holy of Holies and sits on the Ark of the Covenant and says, "I'm God." Do you need the Ark to have another temple? Well, they've operated without an Ark before. I would really love an explanation for that, but that is the truth. So do they need the Ark? No. But would the Ark go a long way? Yes. And so from a prophetic angle, I'm interested in the Ark of the Covenant where it is because of its role in end times events. Practically, I don't mind the fact that it's the Ark of the Covenant, the Old Covenant. A covenant that no human being would ever live up to. And it's almost like kind of the laissez-faire way in which the scriptures present it. Once it gets to the promised land, it's kind of like, it wasn't making atonement for sin anyway. Like there was no none of this was atoning for sin. It was a picture, a foreshadowing. It was a faith in a coming atoner, is the whole model of the Levitical system. And so from that vantage point, I can understand why the Ark never really played a big role for hundreds and hundreds of years of Jewish history. If it's discovered, I think that would be important and interesting from a an eschatological viewpoint. It would also validate our Bible too, in some profound ways. I don't think it's in the Vatican. I think it's hidden. I don't think anyone knows where it is. In addition to the guy that you referenced, there were reporting. They were doing in the mid-90s, they were doing archaeological excavations under the Temple Mount illegally. The Jews were, because the Palestinians control the Temple Mount, and that includes the subterranean areas. And they were digging illegally.
I can neither confirm nor deny that those things are still occurring.
That are still occurring. But Bill Clinton let the cat out of the bag. There was almost World War III that happened. Bibi Netanyahu, they had to remove all of the excavations that were taking place. One rabbi says that as this was all happening, that he went into an inner chamber and saw a box covered in beaver skin that fits the dimension of the Ark, but wasn't able to do any further investigations. Whatever is under the Temple Mount is alarming enough to Palestinians that they've concreted up all access points to getting under the Temple Mount. So you would need something seismic to happen to justify, getting up under there. Could Ethiopia be an option? Who knows? Unlikely. But again, I think the Ark of the Covenant is a very interesting thing. And I think the most interesting thing is that it was the Ark of a broken covenant. It was a covenant that man could never live up to. And anyway, I hope you guys have any questions about that. I found it interesting, did a bunch of research, and wanted to kind of roll it out there.
I know the CIA was really big into it because I've looked at a bunch of the conspiracy theories of like CIA remote viewing stuff, and they specifically, and this is in the actual CIA released files.
Remote viewing is in like astral projection?
Yeah, astral projection into like psychics and stuff like that. It gets into it. Not that I believe in it, but they were specifically targeting the Ark of the Covenant. And this is...
They were seeking God.
But the weird thing is, this is like actual unclassified documents from, or declassified documents from the CIA of them targeting it.
I think it would be really cool for us to find, if only because then we would have, at the very least, sculptures of what seraphim actually look like.
Cherubim.
Cherubim, not seraphim, cherubim.
Yeah.
But I would love to see that, because there are all kinds of artistic depictions. I don't think any of them are really very right. I would love to actually see what they look like.
That'd be cool.
On this side, I will see them on the next. I can't wait.
Well, I hope you guys found that interesting. We're going to close out, though, with a very quick XY of Zach's Z's posts. Whatever it is, roll it. XY of Z's post, I got it.
Every tweet, every thread, he's taking a heat. Zach's on the case in a digital race. The XY of Z's post, he's setting the pace.
So I'm going to say maybe like 25 years ago. It could be longer than that. See, I'm maybe 30 years ago. My dad, Sandy Adams, who pastors Calvary Chapel in Stone Mountain, Georgia, embarked on our Sunday evening service on a project that was, pretty cool, a lot of work, and just massively impactful. He called it Bible Scan. And so he set out, and I think it was a little over 100 Bible studies, but he wanted to take our church through the Bible as fast as he could, but do it in such a way that it didn't skip out on anything, that it was meaty, it was heavy, it was thorough. So how do you cover the Bible quickly, but also do it thoroughly? And so he developed this whole thing. He called it Bible Scan. Again, 106 or so studies. But every Sunday night, you would have a printout, this PDF printout, that had all of the outline and the breakdown of that book of the Bible. And then he would teach kind of from that. It was kind of his notes. And so this has been archived for years and years and years. There, at one point, was we took all of the audio and the PDFs, and we did an MP3 CD release type of a thing back in the day when that was a deal, and we sold those, and that was kind of the next iteration of it. And then anytime we've had an intern at Calvary 316, one of Creighton has gone through, you went through Bible Scan, right?
Yes, I absolutely have.
Yes. So my dad's church, they've just launched a Calvary Bible Institute Extension Campus. Is like a 1-year kind of hardcore Bible training. But what they wanted to do as one of the classes is to take Bible Scan, update it, package it, and make it one of their college classes, because it's something you could do independently. You could do it on your own. And so I didn't know anything about this at all until I went to an event. I saw that this had been released. I bought a copy on Amazon. The reason that this is an XY of Z's posts is I posted out a link earlier today to Amazon where you can buy a copy. I bought a copy. It's $20. It is bigger than I thought it was. It is full paper size, so it's like 8.5 by 11. But
it's a textbook.
But it is the entirety of Bible Scan. Again, they went through, they edited it. I guess they were working on it this summer. They took out all the things that were dated, because there would be like announcements in there and things like that. But it's called Bible Scan. It's by my dad, Pastor Sandy Adams, and I highly recommend this to any student of Scripture. If you're looking for a way you want to take the next year and a half and you want to go through the Bible, but not just go through it, not just read through it, not just listen to it, but you want to like study it thoroughly, but quickly. I don't know of anything that'll do it better than this. I do know of one thing that'll do it quicker. It's called the 66. It's something that I did, but it was one book at a time. This is superb. It's fantastic. I bought a copy, and I'll be buying some copies for some friends. And but
I'm gonna buy a copy when I get home.
But I encourage you, if you just go to Amazon.com and you search Sandy Adams Bible Scan, it'll come up. If you go to X, Zach_Adams, if you go to my page, I've got a link posted there as well. But I wanted to plug this, not just because it's my dad, but because it's excellent. And I think if you are a student of Scripture, this absolutely should be a go-to, and you will be totally blessed by it. So, with all that being said, thank you guys for being with me tonight. Thanks for joining us with the Outlaw Radio Show. If you are watching, check out the podcast. It gets released tomorrow on Thursday, Apple, Google, Spotify. If you're listening, hang out with us one Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. We go live at 8 p.m. We stream on X. We stream on Facebook. The easiest way to find us is our YouTube channel, which is outlawradio.live. You can learn all about the show, find archives, quick links by going to outlawradio.org. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys this time next week. God bless.